Hey there. All right, so this is going to be a short tutorial on understanding and using camera focus. And we're inside of ProAnimator. So when you download the source file and open it up, it should look something like this. Now, what we're going to do is show you how to set any of these things in focus, set the focus range, stuff like that. So the first thing is to come over here, and if it's not selected already, go to the camera track and click on that little green pose right there. When you click on that, you'll see the animation controls will update for this camera, and this is the camera focus area that we're going to concentrate on. So right now you see camera focus is turned on, but you don't see it. So a couple ways of seeing it is to switch over to the do a render test where it looks like this, or you can, and then the next time you click here, of course, it's going to snap back. Now there is no focus when you're just in preview mode. So when you're moving around like this, you're not going to see the focus unless you do a render test like that for an individual frame, and then it goes away as soon as you start dragging again like that, or you can leave on auto render. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first of all, is just leave on auto render. Now as you move around, you see it snaps out, and then let go. When you let go, it renders it out with the camera focus turned on again. Okay, so there you go. So now you'll notice that what we have here is we have one object that's in focus, and all the rest of these guys are out of focus, and they get more out of focus the further away from the camera that you are. So this is a very cool effect, and here's how you do it. Now I really want you to understand how this is working and how it's set up. So what you're going to do is come down here to where it says one view and switch this to 2 horizontal. And what that does then is that's going to split the view into 2 pieces. Now one piece is using our main camera right there. The other piece is using a user camera. So if yours didn't come up as user camera, go ahead and click there. See, we can switch back to main camera here, or we can switch to user camera 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Now here's the fun part. Go to your camera controls, select the dolly, and then pull this back a little bit, and you'll see this red guy, this thing here, that's the camera. So from the camera then you can see the cone, the view angle that is being cast out, and then you see there are our objects right there. So if I back this up a little bit further, you'll see that this is basically a side view of the same thing that we're looking at right here. Got that? So this user camera 1, now if we switch this around, if we rotate this so that we're looking at it from the camera's viewpoint, like we're looking straight behind the camera, and then zoom in on this and then move it over a little bit, about like that. Okay, now you can see that this is the exact thing that we're seeing here. Got it? So what we're seeing here is from the camera's viewpoint. What we're seeing here is just the user camera's viewpoint. So rotate this back, and I'm going to point out a few things for you here. Now, first of all, notice that there's a red line that's coming out of the end of the camera. Okay, that end of that line right there represents the orbit center for the camera. So if I come over here, let me turn auto render off for just a sec. So you see how it's sitting on that green cube right there. So if I move this around, it's well, actually it's a little bit behind the green cube, isn't it? Oh yeah, see, it was sitting clear out there sort of in space. So it's rotating around the end of that spot right there. Got that? So the end of that is going to be the orbit center of our scene. But that may or may not be what it is that you want to have in focus. But that's certainly the first thing to take a look at. So what we can do is this now. Again, remember, click on this and you'll be able to then see the camera focus controls. So the first thing to get camera focus is, of course, turning it on. If we turn auto render on, you see there it is without camera focus. And let me slide this over a little bit. There we go. So there it is with camera focus on, and there it is without camera focus. So this is a full quality rendering with no focus, and you have to have this turned on. So once it's turned on, you will then see that right here you end up with 2 of these green boxes. So the second green box represents the range, the focus range. The red line represents the focus distance when this button is turned on. So if we turn this on right there, it's focusing right at the end. It's focusing at the distance of that red camera tumble center. Okay, so right now you'll see it's at the it's focusing with the center at that purple pyramid, and that sure enough is what we were looking at right there. You see it's focusing so that at there, and then everything closer or further behind is out of focus. All right, so that's when we're using camera tumble center. Now this works a lot of times. You know, a lot of times when you're moving around an object, you want the camera tumble center to be the center of your focus. So that's fine. But other times you don't. And here's when you don't. If you're trying to animate this focus, for instance, it's usually a bit troublesome to try to keep moving the center of that to different parts. You have to animate the tumble center in order to animate the focus. And that doesn't make a lot of sense frequently. So here's what you do for that. You just turn it off. When you turn it off, you'll see it shows you a number which actually happens to be what the tumble center is right at the time. And then if we turn this sideways, you'll notice that we can change the focus distance. And as we slide it to be less, you see the distance is closer to the camera. Okay, so it's moving it back like this. And every time we let go, it'll do an updated render. So here now you see the focus is still set between these two green boxes, and this green cube is in focus. As we move it a little bit further, now the ball will be in focus, and if we wanted the other ball to be in focus, we can just drag this out until that stick ends up being clear out there, and then our second ball, actually it looks like it got the cube because we have a pretty, oh yeah, I wasn't looking at this from the right angle. So let's pull this back a little bit, about like that, and now our ball is in focus. So you see how easy that is once you sort of understand what it is that you're looking at to set the focus distance. Okay, now the focus range is the distance between these two green boxes. This is the, you know, the near plane, the near focus, and this is the far focus. And we handle both of these separately at the same time. Sorry, we handle both of these same time by simply choosing a focus range. So right now the focus range is really small. You know, it's just this one tiny little thing, which is a really cool shallow depth of field type of look. But if we increase this, look what happens. If we increase this, now you see we're getting focus on both sides of that ball. You see the focus distance is still set on the ball, but now we're getting more objects in focus. So if we increase that range out quite a bit, you see these are still pretty out of focus, but then it's starting to get less and less, and now this is pretty much in focus. This is obviously crisp. This is very nicely crisp. That's crisp. That's starting to get out of focus, and then that one's pretty blurry. So you see how that focus range works, okay? And you can animate this too if you set a small range and then set a large range, okay? So now there's one other thing I want to show you here, which is called Focus on Selected Objects. This button is gold. It's so easy to work with. So to give you an example, say you're setting something up and you say, you know, what I want is I want this pyramid to be in focus, right? Well, here's what you do. You come over and you select that pyramid. Now, this view, since we're in auto render mode, if I click on the pyramid just like that, you see how it sort of popped for a second and then it went blurry again? Okay, that's because during the mouse down, it's going to snap out of final render mode, and you see how over here it's still selected, but then it renders it in final render mode, and final render mode does not have you know, bounding boxes and stuff like that. So this isn't always the best way to work. It's oftentimes better to work with it over in a different view, or you just flip this off for the time being so that you can click around and see exactly what it is you're getting like this, and then you can snap back to auto render once everything's turned on. But let's say that we're going to work with it in this view over here, this user view. So I'm going to start off in my animation. I want the pyramid to start off as the thing that's in focus. So I'll select that, and now once I've selected that, of course, the object controls are going to change. The animation controls are going to change to this object because that's what I clicked on. So you need to come back here then once that's selected and click on the camera track just like that. And now it shows you the camera focus controls, and we can click on this here where it says focus on selected object. So one click, bang, that's all it takes, and look at that. Now that pyramid is nicely in focus. So let's reduce the range a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so now it's really obvious that that's the only thing that's in focus. So now a little bit later in the animation, let me move this in a tad. Let's say a little bit later, let's go to 5 seconds. We want the back, how about this sphere right here? Okay, that's going to be this one. So we'll select that guy like that, and then come back up here to this pose. Remember, we're setting 2 different focuses, so there are 2 different poses. And then we can select on this button again, give that a click, and presto, now that's in focus. So one of the things also I want you to notice is how doggone fast this is. Do you notice you're getting an entire rendering here with depth of field? It's just blazing fast, so much fun. Okay, so now that's in focus. So what we can do now is just change the 2. You see, as we move the time slider between these guys, you'll see that the focus is going to be changing. So if I move it there, if I move it a little down, you see now that's in focus. If I move it down, you see the cube's in focus. Now the pyramid is in focus. And now that sphere is in focus. So anywhere along here, if I move it back to that's the other sphere. So you see now we have an animated depth of field, an animated focal plane effect. So you see how totally easy that is. Yes, 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 yes. So that's it. That's all there is to it. Go to the user camera. That way you'll be able to see and adjust the range, the focus range, really easily. Setting up this type of thing is pretty hard in this view unless you really know what you're doing. You keep having to do render, 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 render in order to just sort of gauge what the focal distance is, you know, what the focus range is. So that's oftentimes tough. So I'd really recommend that you switch to 2 views horizontal, and then you can use this guy to be able to look at it and gauge really accurately what your focal range, I keep saying focal range, your focus range is going to be. And then go for it. You know, after that you can set your range, your distance just by dragging this guy anytime, and you'll be all set. All right, so there you go. Camera focus. Hopefully it's understood now. Use it and make lots of really cool stuff.